Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Hi, everyone. The first thing I'd like to cover today is the fact that I got a very long letter from an atheist about our show and about our story about miracles. They sent me a lot of information, which I think would have taken me about 5 hours to read. I spent about 45 minutes going through it, and I saw what the thrust and the intention of all the writing was. And it's someone who was an atheist, and they're absolutely positive there's no God. So they wrote and said many things. They attached quotations from some very famous people that I'm sure you've all heard about. You all heard their names and know their names. So there's a lot of very famous people in history who said there was no God. And a couple of things that were cited is you can't prove the existence of something that is invisible and soundless. So I'd like to clarify that right away. God is invisible and he is soundless. He's quiet. He's present everywhere. We don't see him. We don't hear him. At least we don't hear any sounds. But in history, over the last 7,000 years now that mankind has been talking to God, we have the Bible where he spoke to people 20,000 times in the Bible. So there's 20,000 times and people who have heard him talking to them. And then we've had 10,000 saints in the last 2,000 years. Imagine 10,000 saints. And I don't know any saint in history who did not talk to God and hear God because they were doing what God told them to do. So if you read any of the lives of the saints, you'll notice that they were all talking to God. And see, you don't have to prove there's a God because he really proves himself. You ask him questions, he gives you answers. He sends his answers like mental telepathy by sending you ideas, inspirations, intuitions. So you get thoughts in your mind and you know they're coming from God because you just asked him a question. You ask him a question and then the next thought you get will be his answer. He doesn't let the devil answer a question. When you ask God a question, he doesn't let the devil answer. So the first answer comes from God, and the second, third, fourth, fifth, and maybe the 10th answer comes from someplace else. But the first answer to a question, if you're talking to God, will be God. And the Bible's pretty clear about that. James chapter 1, I think, is probably a good place to look if you want evidence, James chapter 1. All right, so I'm just trying to help anybody else out there who's an atheist. And by the way, gravity is invisible and soundless, and we've proven that gravity exists. And oxygen is also invisible and soundless, and we've proven that that exists as well. So famous people saying you can't prove that invisible and soundless things exist have missed the mark there, I think. And if you want to prove God exists, all you have to do is ask him questions. You keep asking him questions, you'll start getting answers like the saints did and like the people in the Bible did. And if you're asking for miracles, the miracles you receive after you ask for them also proves that he exists. So it's really that simple. I used to doubt that God existed 54 years ago, but 54 years ago I asked him to reveal himself to me, and he did. And since then I've received miracles practically every single day for 54 years now. So I no longer believe there's a God. I'm positive there's a God, just simply because I've received miracles for 54 years, and I've spoken to numerous people who've also experienced miracles. So the miracles themselves prove that there is a God. It's really that simple. So ask God questions, he'll answer you. Ask God for miracles, he'll send you miracles. And then you won't have to believe in God anymore. You'll know he's there. You look at your children or look at your spouses or look at your best friends, and you know they exist. You don't have to believe that they exist. All right, so I hope that helps anybody else out there who's doubting that God exists, because that's the first step. If you don't believe God exists, you're not going to be asking him for miracles, and you're not going to be asking him for advice and instructions when you're trying to solve problems in your life. Our coincidence miracle next is about a time this past summer when I was at a park, and I was walking down the path in the park, and there were two women talking on the pathway, and they looked like they were friends, and they were laughing and joking as they were talking. So as I walked by, I handed them a card, and I said, I just wrote a book. I'd like to just give you a card. And like some people do, and it's always a clue for me that God wants me to say something more, they asked me what the book was about. So I gladly told them some things about how it's about miracles I've seen in my life over the last 54 years, and how the real thrust and the purpose of the book is to convince people that God wants to have discussions with us all the time. He wants us to ask him for direction and advice when we're making decisions in our life, because he's present with every single person. This has been proven for thousands of years. So they got very interested at that, and one of the ladies' jaw dropped, because she said to me, you know, what's so amazing is you just came by and handed us a card telling us that, you know, God wants us to talk to him and ask him questions and get directions in our life. And that's exactly what we were talking about as you approached. We were just talking about how our lives are getting so complicated, both of us. We've been friends for many, many years, and our lives are getting very complicated now. The children are getting older, their problems are more complicated. Our jobs, we spent many years working in places where, you know, more is expected of us, etc. And we were just talking about how we need to have a better source for us to get direction and guidance, and maybe we should look into some books on that topic. And here you come by and offer us a card on a book that says, Ask God for Advice. So we talked quite a bit about it more after that. I gave them some more convincing evidence. But, you know, what I tried to indicate in this story is I was just inspired by God, and that's what the word inspired means. The Spirit of God comes into us and puts something in our mind. I was inspired to hand these two women a card, and he inspired them, after I got the card in their hand, to ask me what the book was about. So that's how God works through all of us. He got me to hand them a card, he got them to ask me the question, and then the message was delivered. Our next coincidence miracle story is often when I'm handing out cards to people, I also ask them to tell me if they've had any miracles in their life. And I did find a person who responded with the following miracle story from their own life. The person was age 49 at this point in their life. and they told me that when they were 9 years old, they were having a dream, really a nightmare, that the house was on fire. The house they lived in was on fire, and they woke up from the dream, and they got inspired to look outside the window, and they looked outside and they saw the fire outside burning the house. So they woke their parents up, and certainly from all indications saved 4 people in the family from dying in a house fire. So, people have all kinds of miracles in their life, but this 49-year-old person remembers vividly how he was 9 years old and had a dream. And he did share that he's had other dreams in his life over the last 49 years, but he thought this was one miracle he would share with people, since I told him I would be putting it on our radio podcast. Our next coincidence miracle is about a woman who's telling us that she was pregnant twice, but in both cases the children were born stillborn, which means they expired and died before the 9 months were up, before she got to deliver the babies. And in both cases, she said that the doctors never saw any problem all the way through the 8 months, and that the problem developed in the ninth month in both cases. And each time the doctors had told them they saw no reason for this problem, and that she could still have children, and that's why she got pregnant again, because her and her husband wanted to have a large family. So what happened was she got pregnant again for the third time, and she was inspired. She was praying throughout the whole pregnancy, but she said she got inspired, and one day while she was praying, to go to a different doctor and mention the problem that she was having, because she still was seeing the same doctor as with the 2 miscarriages. So a friend of hers recommended a great doctor, and she went to him, and he found out, because she went in the 8th month when she saw this new doctor, and he discovered and told her that the problem was that she had a, I guess, uncommon situation, but some women develop blood clots in the 8th or early part of the 9th month during pregnancy, and the blood clots prevents nutrition from reaching the baby. So that's why in these stories of stillbirths, a lot of times, she's telling me from her expertise now, everything's fine, the pregnancy's fine for 8 months, and then in the 9th month problems happen, and some women hear like 1 week before the delivery date that the baby has passed away before delivery, and it seems to be this blood clotting problem. And so now she's so delighted to tell us that she has 3 daughters now, and in all cases she went to this different doctor, and he induced birth before the 9 months were up. So the babies were born prematurely, but they did survive through this problem with blood clotting and nutrition. I'd like to remind everyone that if you want to hear past shows, past broadcasts, you can go to our website, which is wcatradio.com/miracles. Once again, just remember the words wcatradio.com/miracles/ one more time, wcatradio.com/miracles/ and you can listen to any of the shows we've broadcasted now, I guess for about 105 broadcasts, 105 weeks so far. One more time, wcatradio.com/miracles. God bless you all. I hope you enjoyed the sharings this week. And remember, if you don't believe in God, just ask Him to reveal Himself to you, and He will. Talk to you again next week.